And this afternoon, the battle over the Kpandai parliamentary seat is far from over. This is because the ruling National Democratic Congress NDC has served notice. It is pushing for an investigation into the Electoral Commission of alleged falsification of Gazette and other electoral documents tied to the Kpandai parliamentary election result declarations. In a recent ruling, the Supreme Court reinstated Matthew Nyindam as the duly elected Member of Parliament for the constituency, a decision that has triggered outrage among NDC supporters, particularly in Kpandai. Speaking on PM Express last night with Evans Mensah, Majority Chief Whip Roxanne Nelson Dafiamakpo alleged that the Electoral Commission manipulated Gazette documents to mislead the court into reaching its decision. Take a listen.
Took steps to clean it up on the 6th of January. Now he comes to court and denies the 6th of January Gazette publication.
As an error.
As an error, and calls it a genuine mistake. This is the case that a lot of people are not appreciating. I'm not passionate, but it is the...
But what if indeed it is a genuine error?
Hold on. It is the injustice done to Wakpa.
But what if indeed it's a genuine error?
How can that be a genuine error? Why were you not allowing your head of institution to continue to communicate with Parliament? Because she had communicated with Parliament and gave a certain exact number. You can't get numbers wrong because the number of parliamentary seats is fixed. There's no fraction of seats in Parliament. It is either 276 or not. So you cannot gazette, you can't tell the clerk to Parliament in consonance with Regulation 43 2B of CI 127/2020 that I have gazetted 274, I have 2 outstanding, and then your director of election will use the back door and be communicating with the clerk and be giving different indications. And he goes to court in the name of the commission to now mislead the court that the gazette notification that he had ordered to be done on the 6th of January was no longer a proper one, and that it is 24th. Meanwhile, there's an original letter before Parliament that the Gazette notifications were on the 23rd.
So you want the EC investigated?
The EC has to be investigated.
Why?
Why? You are not interested in what is playing out here?
I mean, who will investigate the EC?
Parliament can do that, CID can do that, any investigating body can do that. And I'm going to raise this matter in Parliament. But because we are going for a review, I want us to settle the matter on review. And then we can look at the criminal conduct of some officers at the EC.
Criminal conduct?
Yes. 284, especially section 18, 1 and 2. Your right to go to court will be deferred until the AC says I have gazetted.
Yeah.
That is why when parliamentary elections are held on a certain 7th of December, you cannot just, if you are aggrieved, you can't proceed to court. Even though there are some other case law that says that where you are aggrieved by the outcome of a public election, you can proceed to court with. No. Because it's very specific. And the authority in Boefio versus NTC is very clear that where a law sets down a procedure for a right to be exercised, it's only that procedure that will be followed. So it is EC that will gazette before your right to go to court will be ripe.
Let's get talking, and joining me on Zoom right now is the Director of Elections and ICT for the National Democratic Congress, Rashid Tanko Computer, and the Deputy General Secretary of the NPP, Haruna Mohammed. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Let me begin with you, Mr. Computer. You allege the Electoral Commission manipulated Gazette documents to mislead the Supreme Court. Really, what specific discrepancies can you point to? Kindly unmute so we can hear you.
Let me say good afternoon to you and Alhaji Haruna and your cherished viewers. But my title is Deputy Director of Elections and IT for the NDC. Very well. You see, that has been our position. The Electoral Commission, in concert with NPP, brought in a gazette to the Tamale High Court, which was dated 6th January 2025. And that gazette had this thing, Kpandai constituency, being part of it. In fact, they swore an affidavit. And that's perjury. They told a lie. That was a big lie. If you lie under oath, it's perjury. And they were doing that in order to convince the court, for the court to side with them, in order to dismiss our application that we filed on 23rd December 2024. That's fraud. And they must be investigated for that. Especially the MPP, the lawyers of Martin Nyindam and Nyindam himself should be investigated. Where did they get the 6th January Gazette from? Who gave them the Gazette? The Electoral Commission has been manipulating this Gazette document, in fact, producing it, and not even there. They shouldn't even stop there. In fact, the investigation should also go further to the one who was in charge of Ghana Publishing Company at the time of this 6th January Gazette. All these people should be investigated for falsifying state document and should be dealt with according to law. In fact, we are not even going to end there because falsification of public document is fraud.
Right, I'll come back to you, but let me bring in Haruna Mohammed in at this point. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the opposition MPP. Haruna, has your party independently verified the authenticity of the documents that were relied upon by the Supreme Court?
Thank you very much. First, I say good afternoon to your cherished viewers and Mr. Rashid Tanko Computer. A bit of correction. The Supreme Court did not rely on any Gazette notification on the 7th of January. The Supreme Court did not rely on such document. If you permit me, I would make some clarifications on this particular matter and to point the fact that the NDC is trying to do all manner of things to please their supporters in Kpandai. Just yesterday or so, they were going to burn down the district assembly because of their dissatisfaction and why the DC did not accompany the lawyers to the Supreme Court. They were going to be beaten at the Supreme Court on 28th. My friend Rashid Tanko is here and he knows what the youth. So they are doing all these things to please the youth and buying time. What will happen is that, when elections are completed and you want to file a petition, it is very clear in the laws of our land as to how the petition is being filed. I've heard Honorable Dafiamapa made certain statements whilst he was on PM Express, and I was very surprised. You can only file a petition at the court relative to a filing of an announcement or a publication of a gazette. On what basis did the NDC go to court to file their petition? If you ask them, they will be quiet. When they went on the 23rd to file the petition, ask them whether they had notice of any gazette notification at all. Again, when they were filing on the 25th of January, whether they had any notice of gazette notification. These are persons who are not very serious when they are preparing their case. We went to court to respond to your petition, and in the response to your petition, at the time, we had in our hand a publication that was online, which was a gazette notification on the 7th of January. So we filed our case and we submitted that document as a proof of notification to dismiss your application relative for premature application that was sent to court. In that particular circumstances, again, we had a case in Akwetia which involved them, the NDC. Then we also indicated that relying on the same 6th January Gazette notification, we also filed that the NDC case that they filed for Akwetia was also out of time. So the NDC went to the Supreme Court. This same NDC, they went to the Supreme Court and asked that the 6th January Gazette notification is not the recognized Gazette notification. This was the NDC lawyers speaking. Their current MP for Akwetia was the lawyer in that particular case. This was the NDC lawyers that the 6th January Gazette notification was not the right Gazette notification. They went to the Supreme Court, they wrote to the Assembly Press and went and procured with a proof of purchase. They brought it to court and they argued their case, and the Supreme Court said that the only recognized Gazette notification is the 24th of December Gazette notification, which contained that of Akotia and that of Kpandai. And this was clear, apart from the 4 constituencies that were declared and then published in the Gazette for the SIF, there was no any other Gazette notification. This was the NDC. They won on the 11th of June 2025 in the Supreme Court, speaking through their lawyers and affirmed so by the judges of the Supreme Court. Then the MPP, having realized that this was a document that has no recognition in law, which we have used internally, decided that no, then we have to go and procure that, because we have failed in that particular circumstances of stopping the election petition of the NDC, because the verified and valid Gazette notification was that of the 25th. Then you as NDC, who filed your case without a Gazette notification, never had any Gazette notification. You sought to rely on our 6th January. When you fought that 6th January in the Supreme Court and got a judgment, then you sat down today and said they have falsified document. These people should come again. Look, they are not serious. These people are not serious. They don't prepare their case. Not at all.
Right.
So I am telling you on authority that these people, they are sleeping on their job or on their job. And let me make this clarification too. Afenyo-Markin is saying that, Honorable Afenyo-Markin is saying that a document, he referred to CI 127, Regulation 43B, where he referred as a Gazette notification. He's wrong. In Regulation 43B, 2B of the CI 127, that B did not talk about Gazette notification. The A talks about Gazette notification. The B talks about a report of the elected members of Parliament, which is submitted to the clerk. And that must be put in its right perspective. Honorable Afenyo-Markin did not give a true reflection of the CI. A talks about a Gazette. A talks about a Gazette. That is 43.2A, talks about a Gazette. 43.2B talks about a report. And a Gazette indicates those who contested in the elections and the number of votes that they got. All that is indicated, and then the one that is elected in the status column is indicated as elected. But in the report that is submitted to Parliament for swearing in, for them to know who are the members that are elected, it goes by way of report, not Gazette notification. That one has to be corrected, and that is what I want them to be situated very well. So They know that their case is wrong. They did not take any serious research in their case. They want to please their supporters. They don't want them to bend down the assembly. They don't want them to beat the people. And they are doing red herring and going around and making a lot of noise. They have lost in that particular case. They won it, the same matter, and then they are turning back. No, come on, NDC, you're above this. Stop it.
Let me bring back Tanko Computer in at this point. Of course, we heard about this for the first time through Roxanne Nelson Afenyo-Markin last night. But when did the NDC realize these discrepancies?
My brother, if an MP is not gazetted, he cannot be sworn into office. It's not possible. No amount of report can allow an MP to be sworn in. You must be gazetted first. That is the official thing, to show that you were validly elected with this number of votes. Then before you are now be sworn into office. So that one is very clear. Honorable Afenyo-Markin was on spot on. What he said was the right thing. First, you must be gazetted, and before you are sworn in. And it's very clear. What they are saying is this: where did the MPP get the 6th January Gazette? That is the crux of the matter. Who gave it to them? They say they got it online. On which website? Is it from the Electoral Commission website or from the Ghana Publishing Company? They must show it. That's why we want the investigation to commence, to find out where they get it. Because they swore an affidavit and attached that 6th January Gazette, the Tamale High Court. And you know what it means. When you swore an affidavit and you lie, it means perjury. You are lying under oath. And that's what they did. So that is the crux of the matter.
Right. Mr. Tanko Computer, you still haven't answered my question. I'm trying to find out at what point the NDC as a party realized these discrepancies.
The only point we realize is when they send it to Supreme Court. When they send the matter to Supreme Court. Because we started the trial in somewhere February 2025 and ended 24th November 2025. At that long period of trial, nobody raised issue about Gazette. Nobody raised issue. They themselves, in their written address to the court before the ruling came out, the High Court, they didn't talk anything about Gazette. They didn't raise issue about we being filed outside the mandatory time of 21. They didn't raise it. Even at the point when we were at the case management, nobody raised issue about Gazette. Otherwise, the matter would have died over there. If they had raised issue about Gazette, if they had brought the 24th November, December Gazette, the matter would have died. It wouldn't have gone through this trial. They didn't raise it. They only got to know that there is another Gazette because when they lost the matter at the Tamil High Court, when they lost the substantive case, then they realized that even if they go for appeal, they were not going to find their feet over there. Then they ran to Supreme Court, arguing that the Gazette that the High Court relied on was the safe one, and therefore they should quash it because there's a Gazette which is 24th. That is what they are doing. Technical issue.
So what's next?
Away from it.
What's next for the NDC? Are you heading back to court?
Yes, on Friday we are going to receive the written reasoning behind the 4-1, the Supreme Court rule. Initially, we told you we respected the decision of the Supreme Court, but we disagree with the ruling. But we want to find out the reasoning behind that, and it's coming out on Friday, 6th February. We will take it. Our lawyers will study it, and we will advise ourselves appropriately. In fact, review is an option. It's a huge option on the table. We are considering the review, but we want to get hold of the ruling, the reasoning behind it, and then we'll proceed from there.
Haruna, the MPP has always touted itself as a believer in the rule of law. Now, the NDC says you're likely to challenge this case in court again. Is the MPP ready to meet them in court?
Even if it goes to the international court, we'll still floor them, mark it on the wall. Mark it on the wall. And you asked him a question that he deliberately refused to answer you. You asked him again that he has still not. Let me answer that question for you. You asked him when they realized that the 6th January Gazette notification was not right. You asked them. They knew it before 11th of June because they got a judgment on that particular 6th January Gazette notification in the Supreme Court, the NDC. They got a judgment on the 11th of June, 2025, indicating that the 6th January Gazette notification is wrong. It's not the right Gazette notification. They got a judgment in their favor. And then they got a ruling on 24th November 2025, and you are asking him when they realized it was an error, and he's refusing to answer you. I am telling you that they knew that that Gazette notification was wrong before 11th of June, when the Supreme Court ruled for them that 6th January Gazette notification was wrong. Again, he indicated that before you will be sworn in, you must be gazetted. That is very true. But it is untrue for a member of parliament in leadership to say that based on CI 127, Regulation 43, 2B, that it was a Gazette notification. The law does not say that you should submit the Gazette notification to Parliament. What the law says in CI 127 is that the Electoral Commission would then send a report to Parliament indicating the only members that have been appointed, that have been elected, the only members that have been elected, which goes to Parliament by way of report. My brother Tanko, go and read it. The Gazette doesn't go to Parliament. It's a requirement, and that was done. The report is an exception from that, which is in B. It is a report. So Honorable Afenyo-Markin should stop relying on some of these things and then not putting the case in proper perspective. We are in a country that we believe in rule of law. Right. And for us, we are ready for the NDC at any point in time. They slept on their job and they lost the case. And that is it. It's period. Even if we had realized and we refuse to prompt you, we don't need to prove where we got our evidence from. In law, you don't need to tell even where you got your evidence. You don't need to say it. That is what the law says. You don't have to prove where you got the evidence. You must be able to prove that what the evidence you put before the court is sacred, it is correct, it can give you judgment.
Right.
And up to today, there's no any Gazette notification. So my brothers, they should go, they can continue, they can go and appeal, it's their right, and we'll follow them to the court and get judgment again.
Mr. Rashid Tanko Computer, I spoke to you on Monday. It was concerning the youth in Kpandai agitating about the Supreme Court ruling saying that Matthew Nyindam is an illegitimate MP. And you mentioned to me that you are going to speak to the youth there to calm tempers. And in fact, you agreed with them. Haruna Mohammed raised a point right now that could it be perhaps because of the pressures that you are facing from the youth in the constituency, that is why you are coming up with these new claims? Is there any truth in that?
Certainly no, not at all. In fact, we've been singing this song long since before even the youth came out to demonstrate. The day the judgment came at the Supreme Court, we addressed the press and we indicated that we were going to cite the Electoral Commission and MPP, in fact, Martin Nyindam and his lawyers, for fraud, to tell the whole world where they got the 6th January 2025 Gazette, where they got it from, who gave it to them. They must be investigated, and we are thinking of going to the CID to investigate them, because we cannot allow this to go. They brought it to, in fact, to deceive the court, convince the court to get judgment in their favor in Tamil High Court. When they lost it, then they now ran and brought another gazette, saying that this one is now the correct one. The one we use for the Tamil High Court is not the correct. They must be held liable for deceiving the court. And that is what we have been saying. So we have been pursuing this matter. And I've spoken to the youth of Kpandai. You see that they've restrained themselves. They've calmed down. Leadership has taken control of it. We've spoken to them, and they know what we are doing. We share their pain because they have been robbed of their victory.
Okay.
Nyindam and his group have robbed them of their victory. And that is what we are all pursuing. So we use the same law court to make sure that we overturn this ruling. And so we are going, we will study it, and I can assure you, in fact, they are listening. Our youth are, in fact, very disciplined youth. The NDC youth, very disciplined. They listen to leadership. As soon as the matter came out and we spoke to them, they listened, and they've calmed down, and they are following leadership to make sure that we follow through the right process and get back the needed justice they deserve. Because the substance of the matter has not been looked at.
Okay.
And my brother Haruna is aware of that.
Haruna, I'll come back to you. Please let him make his point.
What they are looking at. They've rigged the election, and they've used technical means to run away with this kind of victory they are talking of.
Okay. Rashid Tanko Computer, thank you very much. He's the Deputy Director of Elections and IT. Let me wrap up with you, Haruna Mohammed, who is also the Deputy General Secretary of the Opposition MPP. Haruna, you have a few things to say.
Yes, Kenneth, you see, what the NDC is clearly saying is that they did not have a Gazette notification, because if we have brought something that is fake, something that has no origin, then you should have the correct one to put it before the court. Clearly tells you that the NDC is telling everybody that they can be misled, and they are sorry that they have been misled. You see the problem in Kpandai. Mr. Tanko Rashid Computer is the biggest problem in Kpandai. He went to Kpandai and deceived the people. He told them things that they cannot do. He raised their emotions and brought their appetite up. I'm sorry he's my friend, because I don't want him to be beaten up by the youth. But he's the problem in Kpandai. He caused all these mishappenings in Kpandai. Because, look, he will sit down and run down everybody in terms of the elections. They have won, they will do this, they will collect it, and then he runs. And then, look, my good friend is the problem in Kpandai. And I believe that the youth should forgive him. They have lost the case. My brother, you have lost it, and you cannot get any favorable judgments.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is Haruna Mohammed. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the Opposition MPP. And earlier we heard from Rashid Tanko Computer, who's the Deputy Director of Elections and IT with the governing NDC. Now, relief is in sight for law students across the country as Parliament readies itself to finally debate and pass the Legal Education Reform Bill. The draft bill is targeted at liberalizing legal education in the country, where universities are expected to apply to a commission known as the Legal Education Commission for certification to run professional law courses and bar examinations. The reform is part of government's plan to liberalize legal education and abolish the entrance exam into the Ghana School of Law. Speaking on PM Express, Majority Chief Whip Roxanne Nelson Dafiamako said the bill is expected to be passed in the coming days.
The General Legal Council is set up another committee to look into this matter, this allegation. And when they brought their report, it was so damning. They didn't want to reveal it, disclose it to anybody. But I got a copy. In that report, some 11 students or more had been determined that they entered the law school without writing exams. So what they did was to quietly ask them to go away. But we can't do things like that. So I decided to then introduce a private members bill with my brother Susu. Senior Samoku Jeto won't have it. He went to town practically, and I'm saying this publicly because that argument, we had it on your channel, on Joy. And threatening us, we small boys, you recall those comments. We're not perturbed. So our senior Dominic Ayini then joined us to do the private members bill, but eventually we couldn't succeed. So as key NDC frontliners, we made it a point that we need to do this. So as part of the campaign, we pushed it through the manifesto committee, and it received some good recognition.
Indeed,
and
it was in your manifesto.
Yes. So once we got in, we said, no, once we have our foot in the door, this is one of the first things we should push. Even then, we took our time to engage. So we spent the whole of last year engaging, and here we are. This is the final product, I should tell you. Because this evening, just before we adjourned today, we took the committee's report for the second reading.
Second reading already?
Second reading. Because it's been laid and referred to the committee. The committee had done extensive consultations. And brought a report today. So this evening we took it. So that's the final product that is ready for consideration by plenary, I'm sure from tomorrow or within the week. Now, Evans, this is going to cure, going to remedy the situation where we have only Makola and some other allied campuses running the professional law program. You see, what we are doing is in consonance with Article 25(1), I believe Clause E or so of the Constitution. Look, there must be equal right to education. Embedded in the right to equal access to education. No, right to education is also equal access. And equitable access. For instance, I should be able to live in Ho and get trained and become a lawyer without even stepping a foot in Accra.
And responding to concerns about a possible lowering of standards, Dafiamako explained that safeguards built into the draft are intended to ensure quality is not compromised.
So we are opening access, but quality, the issue has been quality.
Yeah, that has been the main argument.
We are not compromising on quality at all.
How are you going to ensure that in this bill?
Now, so there are a lot of strictures provisions that deal with strictly, or the strictures have been canvassed in such a way that accreditation, the checklist for accreditation is still strict. For a faculty to meet accreditation so they can run, they can train first in the LLBs and train in the professionals before you prepare your candidates for the national bar exams strictly. You go through a very rigorous accreditation regime. Even lecturers, for you to be able to lecture in the law, in a faculty or in a school, we are going to set standards. So we are not backing down on standards and quality. So everybody should be assured. We want to open the system. People should. And it's also a revenue generator. Anybody who sees this as retrogressive in nature, I'll be surprised. Because there are people who want to train and they are ready to pay. Do you know how much Ghanaians go to Gambia to pay?
Yeah.
A lot of money. And when you go to, look, they'll reject you in Ghana. People have first class in LLB. They are told that they can't pass the entrance exams, or they wrote the entrance exam and they are told that under some strange circumstances they failed. They can't even ask for a remarking. They find some funds. They travel to the Gambia. They go and top the class in Gambia. Yeah. Sweep all the halls. Same is happening in Sierra Leone. Same is happening in Malawi, in Botswana, in Zambia, as Lusaka, in Tanzania, in Kenya. And above all, Rwanda is the most favorite destination because we share the same common law jurisdiction with them. And those who can afford, they go to the king's land in England and get trade. Even when they do all that, that's not the end. Some are even going to Nigeria here now.
I see.
Meanwhile, when we were here, Nigerians were coming here. So I was in class with some Nigerians. When you come down, there's something called post-call. You are a trained lawyer, but in this jurisdiction, you must also be called to the Ghanaian bar. That process that will make you be eligible to be entered onto the roll of lawyers is called post-call. The cost of that post-call has perpetually been pegged at the Ghanaian cedi equivalent of £6,000.
Wow.
That's how much, that's how much it costs for a foreign trained lawyer to be taken through the basic requirements of some courses here so that the person will be eligible to be called to the bar.
Well, let's stay a while with the Majority Chief Whip, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekwa, who has also weighed into the growing controversy of the government's proposal to rename the country's main aviation hub, the Kotoka International Airport, suggesting the facility should be named after a Ga chief. He made the remarks on PM Express with Evans Mensah. We'll hear from him shortly, but first listen to Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin, who says the move is an indictment on the NDC.
That all these years we've had this Kotoka, General Kotoka's name on the airport, and suddenly it's being changed. What is it? After it's Kotoka International Airport, Accra. So Accra is still there. So if you come to Accra or even in the country, how many prominent Voltarians have their names on national assets or national monuments? This is the only thing the people of Volta region can also at least see as something that recognizes heroism from the Volta region. And that one too, they are being denied.
Now, speaking on the AM show on Joy News a while ago, the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Agency, Kofi Kapito, said it is irrelevant when there are more important bread and butter issues to talk about.
You buy something, the person knows the thing is defective. You go back, he tell you, I will not exchange it. I will not even give you your money. We have stores in Ghana, foreign stores in Ghana, who has the audacity to write on the receipt, goods sold are not returnable. And you as an MP, you sit here and it's not important to you. I'm very, very angry at Parliament. Very, very angry at Parliament. The whole Parliament, especially Ayariga. What is also about renaming Kotoka? The most important thing that Ghanaians are going through is renaming Kotoka International Airport. Look, the government has done well. The dollar is coming down. Inflation is doing well. Petrol has gone down. You get my point?
You won't like this one.
Those are the kind of things I want to see.
Don't listen.
Don't tell me about some international airport renaming. Do you know how much it's going to cost the taxpayer? Because the moment you take Kotoka out of it, you have to re-change every single thing that has Kotoka on it. And we don't even think. We thought about Jubilee and what's it called? Flagstaff House. And some people promised that when they come, they will change it.
And they did.
And they did.
Does this come to you more political than?
To me, it doesn't make any sense.
Meanwhile, National Communications Director of the Convention People's Party, Osei Kofi Akwa, says the move is important to correct a wrong in the political history of Ghana.
After 60 years, justice has been served. Now, if we want to build a country, we need to be honest people. The hypocrisy in this country stinks. There are things people don't realize. When the 1966 coup happened, do you know what they did? It separated families. Certain people who were government appointees had to flee for their lives. They had to run in the middle of the night, leaving their children and wives behind. Some of them are still in exile, and I can mention one of them.
Who?
Senior Comrade Arrow from Pomanson, the father of Father Kabe from Pomanson, still in the UK. Otibonsu and other people. Now, when the 1966 coup happened, certain people lost their lives unjustly. They were not taken to court. They were not found guilty of anything, but by the fact that they were associated with Nkrumah, they were killed. And that is why we are so happy that after 60 years, justice has been served. I believe that people who have lost their life, including my grandparents, who were members of the CPP, who were unjustifiably dealt with, okay, and some of them lost their lives. I'm sure today they will pacify wherever they are. So to Ejabrefo, wherever you are, this is your vindication. To Nana Takosi, this is your vindication. Nana Pokumensa, this is your vindication. This is to Nana Kwakumi, this is your vindication. To Nana Kwampoku, this is your vindication. To Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, this is your vindication.
And of course, a section of Ghanaians have also been expressing their views on this subject. Take a listen.
Oh, it's very necessary. They should change it. They should change it to either Ghana International Airport or Accra International Airport. Because, Kotoka, he just overthrown Kwame Nkrumah, or he overthrown Kwame Nkrumah, right? So, it's better. It's either Kwame Nkrumah International Airport, is better. Kotoka, the plan B.
What is the history behind Kotoka? The airport being named after Kotoka? I hear he was killed there. That's the story. People want to bring political issues about it and tribal issues. So maybe Accra is in Accra. So they just name it Accra International Airport and then we'll all be free.
Since Accra is the capital city of Ghana, I think the name should be Accra, not Kotoka.
Everybody knows Kotoka International Airport. So I don't think if they change it, that will be possible.
If they name it Kwame Nkrumah International Airport, that is good because he was the first president in Ghana. And he was the one who built the airport, not Kotoka. Because they killed him there, that is why they named him Kotoka Airport. So to me, I prefer Kwame Nkrumah Airport.
Well, still on this subject, though, the Volta Regional Representative of the National Development Planning Commission, Dr. Elik Blim Kwabla, has weighed strongly into the proposed renaming of the Kotoka International Airport, urging Voltarians to strongly resist any such attempts. And here is a copy of the statement he released to that effect. And it says, I've taken note of reports indicating the intention of the majority leader through the Ministry of Transport to introduce a bill in Parliament seeking to rename Kotoka International Airport as Accra International Airport. As Volta Regional Commissioner to the National Development Planning Commission, I must state clearly and firmly that the proposal represents a misplaced policy priority and must be resisted in the national interest. In the course of my work, I travel across different regions of the world and pass through many international airports. A consistent global practice is evident. Airports are often named after individuals, statesmen, reformers, and heroic citizens, and not as casual symbolism, but to reflect history, identity, and national purpose. These names have not hindered efficiency, competitiveness, or global recognition. On the contrary, they coexist seamlessly with world-class performance. So that's the statement released by the voter regional leader of the National Development Planning Commission. And the Minister for Transport, Joseph Bukari-Nikpe, has also waded in, explaining that the proposal is not driven by political ambition, nor intended to cause public disaffection, but aims to restore the original name given to the airport by Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah. He made the remarks during a working visit to the State Transport Corporation STC terminal in Accra.
This is one of the issues the Ministry of Transport, and for that matter, government, presented to Parliament, our activities for this period of the recall. Parliament will be expected to pass a lot of bills, and as government agenda, we have a lot of bills from the Ministry of Transport, and one of them is the renaming of the Kotoka International Airport to its original name. We will remember that in the period of the Second World War, around 1946, the British Royal Air Force used that place as an Air Force base to carry people to war and other activities. After that period, somewhere in 56, that facility was handed over to the civilian rule. That was the time Sergeant Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was at the helm of affairs. He retooled, he revamped, and redeveloped the Air Force base into a civilian passenger airport. And as at that time, the name was Accra International Airport. And that name is of significance to us. We all here have accepted that Accra is our capital city, marketed, rich culture, and also locational identity. That everybody in this world, especially in the West Africa sub-region, knows that where this struggle for independence had a lot to do from Accra. And so renaming the airport to Accra International Airport is of significant importance to the Ghanaian people and, for that matter, the African personality. Now, the situation is such that we are not doing this with any political thinking. We are doing this to come from a very neutral point of view that Accra is our capital city. It is not anybody's name. If we want to name other monuments or any other national facilities to people, this is the time that we are looking at restructuring them. For the fact that we had a name and it was changed to honor somebody in his role in the 1966 coup, we feel that that history is not what the Ghanaian will want to hear. The fact that it had an original name, and that name was when the first president gave that name to the airport, we should do that, and Kwame Nkrumah himself in his grave will remember, even if the spirit is anywhere and it is coming home, it will get to his original Accra International Airport, no any other name.
That's the Minister for Transport, Joseph Bukari-Nikpe. We can now hear from the Majority Chief Whip, Roxanne Nelson Dafiamekwa, who believes the airport must be named after a Ga chief.
Oh, I believe, to be honest with you, I didn't follow that discussion early, but I got in sync from about a week or two ago.
Okay.
When I read that some CSOs had gone to petition, I think, the president also, and they were staging some demonstration to have that done. So I began to follow the process. But for me, I would rather prefer that his name is named after one of the Ga kings than Accra. Because even though if they say Accra International Airport, a name like Kintakitewia or Ga-Manche, the one who died before, this one. When we were growing up, there was no, Ga-Manche the second. He was the second, very famous. When we were growing up, he was the Ga-Manche we all got to know. Or some famous Ga like Kwesi Saki, those people. So the symbolism will be more. I feel the symbolism more and than Accra. You know, Accra is just like the capital. So, but the name change, I'm not for and against it.
A neutral.
Yes, but when we were younger, the statue where Kotoka statue was at the airport, the historical account was that was where he fell when they killed him, when they shot him during the counter coup. So that was how come they erected the statue and named the airport after him. So the statue itself had been removed as part of the renovation works. I think sometime in 2002 or 3, when President Kufuor decided to renovate the airport, then they lifted. It was like a quadrangle.
Yeah.
The statue was in the middle on a pillar about 10 meters high with a gun, if I remember.
Yeah.
Then the quadrangle was prepared around it. It's all been removed and the airport has been remodeled. So it's only existing in name. If the plaque, if the statue is gone. So if today they want to take the nameplate and put another nameplate, even if it's named after Nkrumah, I even like that because Nkrumah built it. It was built by the colonial administration, but he came to expand it. And so,
well, let's expand this conversation as well. And joining me on Zoom is the PRO of the Ga-Dangme youth in Tema, Henry Oko Oninku. Henry, what does the Ga-Dangme youth make of the suggestion that the airport must be named after a Ga chief?
Right, Sina, thank you very much. I just want to say a very big thank you to your viewers, and then also on behalf of every Ga-Dangme youth, we want to say a very big thank you to you as well. In fact, we have had a couple of conversations happening, we have had a couple of things happening, and I must say that as Gans and as Dangmes, we are so much impressed with a move by government to rename the Kotoka International Airport as Accra International Airport. But then on a more serious note, we were of the view, I heard the majority chief whip mentioning that, you know, even he as a Voltarian, he has been able to mention names of Ga-Dangme chiefs or Ga chiefs who are prominent enough to the extent that he is suggesting that any of them should be named after the Kotoka International Airport. That is the realest truth. He was trying to mention the name of King Takitawia II. These are prominent chiefs. Even before the 1948 riot, we all heard of Nin Kwabena Boni, then Osumanche. So all what we are saying is that we side with what the majority chief whip is saying. At least when you go to Ashanti region, I'm told the airport is named after one Prempeh International Airport. As Gans as we are, we would also be very grateful to government if government can say that you have prominent Ga chiefs, Numo Kwabena Boni, Nin Takitawia, Nin Takikomi. Any of them can be named after the Kotoka International Airport. So basically, we are of the view that government should consider that. So we are happy Accra International Airport is coming to life. Yes.
So why then should it be named after a Ga chief? Because although the airport is on Ghana, Accra is also the capital of Ghana. So why should a Ga chief name be on the airport?
Right. So thank you very much. I gave a typical example of the Prempeh International Airport in Kumasi. So if you believe that, airport in Kumasi should be named Prempeh International Airport, what prevents us from having Takitawia, Takikomi, or Takiobli International Airport in Accra? So basically that is all. But with that being said, I must tell you that whatever decision governments decide to do, we as Ghana people cannot fight government. We are just appealing. We all know Accra. Accra stands for everybody from Tema, Boom, La, Osu, all of us made up of Accra. But then singling out one prominent person to spearhead the entire agenda will be best. So basically, that's all we are asking for.
And what metric would you suggest they use to select a Ga chief if they are to do that?
Right. So I love when you interviewed the majority chief whip. He mentioned that even at his tender age, he heard the good works of one Ga chief by name Nin Takitawia. Now, when you get to the Rawlings Park, as I speak to you now, there's a statue of a Ga chief around the Rollins Park. I don't know if you've taken note of this. Is the man we are talking about. We have a local song, Takita by Gamanchano, Ni Eji Ehimanche Papa. Everybody that is tracing Ga chieftaincy issues and Ga traditional leadership, everybody has to mention Takita because during his time as the chief of Ga, he was able to reunite the entire Ga-Dangme caucus. And that is one reason why some of us would want to push for Accra International Airport be named after Takita or any other Ga manche. Now, I am saying that it can be any other Ga manche because we have Ni Kpandai also playing a very pivotal role, though he was the chief of Usu. We have my own grandfather, Ni Aje Oninku II, who is also a chief of Tema. They all played a very pivotal role as far as building Ghana, building Greater Accra is concerned. So any of them at all, that comes in. In fact, we just want to have a name, Takitaya, Takikomi, Newbly. That is all we are asking for.
Henry Oko Oninku is the PR of the Ga-Dangme youth in Tema. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Henry. Let's talk about inflation now, because Ghana's year-on-year inflation rate has dropped sharply to 3.8% in January 2026. We'll give you the details of that and more after this break. Hello again. Ghana's year-on-year inflation rate has dropped sharply to 3.8% in January 2026. That is the lowest level recorded since rebasing in 2021, according to the latest data from the Ghana Statistical Service. The figures show that price increases have slowed significantly nationwide, with month-on-month inflation easing to just 0.2%. However, the data also reveals wide regional disparities, with some parts of the country still experiencing double-digit inflation, while others record outright deflation. Now, speaking at the release of the figures, government statistician Alhassan Idrisu explained what is driving the sharp disinflation.
The data tell a very clear story. Inflation has fallen sharply and consistently over the year. Price pressures are easing across most components of the CPI. While challenges remain, particularly in some regions and food categories, the overall trend is positive. This creates space for planning, confidence, and recovery. In summary, in terms of numbers, we are talking about January 2026 recording an inflation rate of 3.8%. Food inflation at 3.9%, non-food inflation at 3.9% as well. Goods inflation at 3.6%, services inflation at 4%, inflation for locally produced items at 4.5%, and then we have regional differences, which shows that Northeast recorded the highest inflation at 11.2%, and Savannah recorded the lowest at negative 2.6%.
So my colleague Caleb Ziblim of the research desk is joining me in the studio for more on this. Caleb, what does the headline inflationary figure really say?
So Ken, this is the lowest we are seeing. So for January 2026, the inflation rate was 3.8%. And that's since the 2021 rebasement. So in 2021, the entire inflation basket was rebased. And so that's where you should do the comparison to 2021. But then if you go a bit further, we did from 2000 to 2026. This is the lowest we've seen since 2000. And if you go back further, you see that this is the lowest since 1999. And that's August 1999, where the inflation rate was about 1.9%. So this is the lowest inflation rate since August 1999. As you can see from the chart, if you use the 2021 rebasing, this is the lowest since 2021. But then if you zoom out a bit, this is the lowest since 1999.
What does the 2021 rebasing mean?
It just means that the entire basket of, inflation, we use a basket of goods. We don't use all the things produced and sold within the country. We use a certain basket of goods to determine inflation. So that what's in that particular basket, if it goes up during the time they are monitoring it, that means that there's been some inflation. If the goods within that basket also comes down, it means that's deflation. So that entire basket was rebased. So they took the entire basket, different baskets from previous years, they added some to it and all of that. So that's what we call the rebasing. So that happened in 2021. So that basket was rebased in 2021. And then comparing that basket in 2021 to now, it has gone up by 3.8%. But then if you zoom out again, that's since 1999. And again, I think I should just put a disclaimer out there that this means prices have gone up. So the 3.8% means that prices have gone up by about 3.8% compared to last year. Now the difference is that prices are going up at a
slower pace.
A slower pace, exactly. So even though this 3.8% is very low, it still means that prices are going up. It just means that your prices should be very stable. So for the next month or two, you should see prices remain almost where they are. But then we have some goods that are actually going down. Most of them, they are agricultural goods, the tomatoes, garden eggs, and some of them. So we have some deflation in some areas, but the overall picture is that prices are increasing, but then we're going to see some stability moving forward. And then if you look at the top contributors to the inflation rates, these are what made us get high inflation. We have charcoal, green plantains, ginger, and then the interesting ones I saw was SHS fees. And
right.
It's interesting because we have free SHS, but then in the reports it says public and private SHS fees. So I think the report was talking more about what you pay to go to school, your prospectus and all of that.
Not necessarily school fees.
Not necessarily school fees. And then that might be on the high side. And then again, basic education. This is paid for by the private side. I think public also, you pay some few fees here and there. So also, free SHS and then the basic education, this contributed to the top 20 contributions to the inflation basket in June 2026. So I think from a policy point of view, the government should really understand and help us understand why the free SHS fees was included and then the basic fees as well. I think the books and all of that contribute to the high inflation rates we are seeing. But then again, this is the lowest we've seen since 1999, August 1999, and then the lowest since the 2021 rebasement. And then finally, if you look at the regions, you can see that there are a few regions where there was actually a deflation. Now, in this case, prices in those regions actually reduced. So we have the OT region, the Upper East region, and the Savannah region. The Savannah was the highest with 2.6% deflation. Again, this means that prices in those regions should be relatively cheaper compared to other regions. And then the most expensive was the Northeast region with 11.2%, followed by the Volta region, Eastern region, and the Western region. Interestingly, the Greater Accra region was somewhere around the lowest, that's about 3%. And usually almost all the activity happens in Greater Accra and the Ashanti region. So it's interesting to see that the Greater Accra region was not amongst the highest and one of the lowest. But then the highest was the Northeast region. And then where we saw deflation, again, prices reduced in that particular region was the OT region, the Upper East region, and the Savannah region.
Caleb Ziblim, thank you very much. Let's expand the conversation and go on to Zoom right now and speak to Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University in Michigan, USA, Williams Prepra, for more on this. Mr. Prepra, grateful for your time this afternoon. 3.8% inflation. What's your initial reaction to that?
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your viewers. My initial assessment of this is that, it comes at a very good news to us, especially for those of us who are outside, to our family members, where we see that averagely prices are going down. What really touched me was to see that locally produced items were cheaper than imported ones. This is telling us that Ghanaians should now be focusing on buying made in Ghana and then getting the value for it, and also making sure that our production increases within what we have in Ghana. This is my initial assessment.
And what do you think we should do to maintain this downward trend? Because for consecutive months, we've seen that inflation has been going down.
If you go back into the last 5 years, Ghana's food basket determination, or the CPI indexing, is really affected by food, agricultural production. So we should focus on making sure that one, we are able to produce more and also eat what we produce. Also, if there is a way that we can store, because of the seasonalities of the weather and also the farming season in Ghana, so that in periods where we may not find the tomatoes, the onions that we all know, there should be enough in the system, and that will be able to bring down the prices or stabilize the CPI indexing. So this is what we need to do. I know the previous government tried to build about 800 or 1,000. That's why they had 1,000 warehouses. We just got to know that they could not complete any of them. So if this current government can focus on that one and make sure that these warehouses across the country are completed, and then we can store some of our own agricultural products and then use them in seasons where they are in scarce supply. Right. Then we'll be able to maintain the CPI index as we have it now.
And some Ghanaians are saying that this latest inflationary figures are not reflective in their pockets. What could be the reason?
First, let's remember that determination of inflation is based on selected items. And then also the statistical way of doing it, Ghana Statistical Service does not do, the model they follow is not purely random. It's a non-probability way of doing it. So not all items that we find in the market to be in the basket. So probably they may be talking about, let's say, the onions or tomatoes. Whichever market they went to, the price they find there is what they use. Maybe they went to Kumasi, but if you want to find the tomato price in Accra, it may be different. So CPI, inflation prices, because of the way we do the computation, is an average and not a specific situation. It's just telling you that averagely, this is how prices have moved within. So you may find a situation where in some areas prices have really dropped, and for the same item, you go to another area, price has gone up. But there are a lot of general items that I know that in Ghana are going down, which we all know. Fuel is one of them. There's the general trend, and normally when it goes down, we see the trickle-down effect. And also one important thing, especially with the importation items, exchange rate city has strengthened. And this is one of the reasons why you see that it's now saying that local manufactured products are cheaper because they're able to get raw materials coming in at a lower rate, and production is also increasing. So these are some of the factors.
We saw at least 2 regions recording deflation. Is that a good thing?
Initially, you may say it is good. But in the long run, no one wants deflation. The moment you start having deflation, it's going to have an impact on your GDP computation. Because your GDP computation is the prices of goods within your country at a point in time. So if your prices are in the reverse gear, instead of you moving forward, but your prices are in the reverse gear, you see that your GDP will be affected. So countries, for us in finance and economics, we always want to see a little bit of inflation, but not at a very high speed. So deflation is something that we must watch. So what it means is that the economic management team must pay attention to those regions and see what is really causing the deflation. It can also lead to, okay, let me give you an example. So if the driver of the deflation is a result of the agricultural input, what it means is that those people in that community are going to be poorer as compared to other parts of the country. So we need to pay attention to that area and see what is really happening. Can we find a way to smoothing out agricultural product prices to reverse that deflation in those regions that have been identified? Because deflation in the long run is not good for the entire economy.
Right. William Prepra, thank you very much. He's an associate professor at the University of Michigan. But don't go yet, Mr. Prepra. Let's continue the conversation a bit. Now, how is this going to have a rippling effect on our economy? Because you have already mentioned that deflation is going to affect our GDP. With the overall inflation of 3.8%, what impact is it going to have on our economy, really?
So, at the moment, we averagely, we will say we are on course But the long-run effect, if we keep on seeing inflation going down to a point of zero and moving to a negative figure, the impact will be that growth will be affected. So the overall growth rate will have to be looked at for 2026 if this trend is what we are going to see in the end. And that is what I'm also foreseeing because of the government strategy that they are doing.
Right.
And so we may have to see the government, normally when these are happening, government must make sure that production or productivity is increased within the economy.
Right.
So in the areas of, I know the government says they are doing big push. Most of the big push items have not materialized. We are hoping to see them materialize in 2026. Then that will start kicking in, correcting the deflation that we are expecting. If it continues, if you see the way inflation has been dropping consistently for 13 months, if you don't take care, very soon the entire economy may have an average CPI index in a reverse or in a negative figure, which will not be good for us. So they must make sure that productivity is increased to be able to address this issue of deflation.
Right, don't go yet. I'll come back to you. But Caleb, the blame of our research desk, is still in the studio with that. Let's stay a bit longer on the economy because the Institute of Economic Affairs is taking on the government over its proposed mineral royalty regime, warning it risks locking Ghana into an outdated extractive system that gives away too much and keeps too little. The think tank is rejecting the draft Minerals and Mining Royalties Regulations 2025, which sets sliding royalty rates of 5 to 12% for gold and lithium and a flat 5% for other minerals, describing the approach as a continuation of a, quote, colonial model of resource exploitation. Caleb, take us through it.
So you remember that the last session of Parliament, that was on 19th December 2025, the last minister, surprisingly to almost everyone, laid some regulations in Parliament to introduce a sliding scale for gold and all the other minerals produced in the country. Now, the sliding scale was interesting because that was a point where the lithium lease had to come back to Parliament, and in the lithium lease, the royalties rates was reduced from 10% to 5%. And then the governments argued that they were introducing a sliding scale later on.
Right.
If you look at Act 900, it stipulates that the ministry needs to provide regulations to introduce the royalty scheme, which after the repeal of the previous amendments to the Mining Act, that pegged royalties at 5%. It made it discretionary, and you need regulations to make the royalty effective. So the minister introduced the royalty scale on the 19th of December, the last session of Parliament, and that will need about 21 days to mature. So now that Parliament is back in session, the counting has continued. So we are about 19 days in for the royalty sliding scale that has been laid to mature and then become law. And if you look at the fine details, for gold, it ranges from 5% to 12%. And I think lithium also from 5% to 12%, while the other minerals, that's bauxite, manganese, diamond, and some others, also do a flat 5%. So this is what the minister took to Parliament and has been laid, and the counting is still going on unless the minister decides to put a different regulation on the floor. So this is what's going to happen in the next 20 days, give or take. Now, the issue is that IEA is saying that we have to do away with royalties altogether. They want the minister and the ministry and the government to scrap royalties, and then they want what they call full state ownership of our resources. That's what the IEA is calling for. So they want the states to take over the entire mining sector in the country. They're also calling that the government should not renew any more mining leases. Once the mining lease ends, they should take the companies out of the country, because most of them are foreign-owned. I think more than 70% of them are wholly foreign-owned. We have some of them that are joined between Ghanaians and then foreigners, but then most of them are foreign-owned, particularly the gold mining companies. So the IE says that when their leases come up, do not renew them, and the state should go into the mining sites and the mining fields and then develop them themselves. And that they are calling for service contracts. Now, service contract means that the state effectively owns the sites. The state is supposed to mine them, but then they are going to partner with private companies, that's local private companies. The local private company or contractor would come in with support from the government, subsidies, tax exemptions, and all of that. And then the private contractor would then mine, with support from the government, and then some foreign expertise will come on board. But effectively, this means that anything that is going to mine in the country will stay within the country. They want the government to streamline the value chain so that we can add more value to it. We've been talking about value addition for a long time. That's what the IA is calling for now, value addition. So when you mine, you add value to it before you export. And because these companies are going to be local companies and partnership with the state, the assumption is that majority of the revenue gotten is going to stay within the economy. Because sometimes with the foreign companies, when they get their revenue, you have to take back some to their headquarters, which are in other countries, and then it puts pressure on the currency. So the IA is saying that we should do away with royalties altogether. They want the royalty sliding scale that has been laid in Parliament to be scrapped. And they're calling for the government to not renew any more mining leases, and then the state should take full ownership of the mining sector in the country. Caleb
Ziblim, thank you very much. I still have Williams Prepra, who's an associate professor at the University of Michigan in faraway USA. Andrews University in Michigan in faraway USA. What do you make of the new proposal from IEA?
I'm surprised IEA is taking us back into history. We've been there before. We know Ghana, we have had state-owned enterprises, and we know how we manage them. We were inefficient. By the time we realized we have politicized those entities, and all of them collapsed. In my perspective, royalties, you pay because you allow someone to use your resources or your property. So we may have gold and other natural resources. Bringing in private partners, working with the government, is going to bring efficiency. And then Ghana government is going to benefit a lot when such is done. The employment creation, the innovation that normally comes with it, also the taxes that are paid alongside are far better than getting government owning it 100%. We know entities that are owned, or SMEs that are, they call it state-owned enterprise, that are owned 100% by government. Until recently, all of them were making huge losses. This should not continue. This is a resource that must be mined, which requires a lot of capital and technology to be able to do it. So probably IEA may come back again and not take us back into history and where we failed in that production. In my perspective, it is better for us to partner private enterprises and to be able to get all the efficiencies that are needed and be able to get the best out of our natural resources. Government must focus on two main things: getting policy established and regulate, and then allow private sector to go on. Ghana, based on our relationship with other international organizations, we've gone past state-owned 100% enterprises, and mining requires a huge capital investment. Okay. And the government cannot go and put, and also remember, huge capital investment and also risky. So it is better to let someone use his money to do that project, and then you benefit from it than also going in directly yourself.
Okay. Williams Prepra, thank you very much. He's an associate professor at Andrews University in Michigan, USA. Let's take you to Parliament now, where MPP MP for Damango and also former Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abu-Jinapor says it is completely premature to be discussing who should partner MPP flag bearer Mahmoud Bawumia as running mate for the 2028 elections. Barely a week after his election, Joy News understands there's been intense jostling for the running mate position, with two names coming up: 2024 running mate Matthew Opoku-Prempeh and Brian Champa, who made an impressive showing in the party's primaries. But speaking exclusively to Joy News, Samuel Abu-Jinapor says such talks should be regulated into the background, as the NDC are yet to even elect their flag bearer.
Isn't it too early? Isn't it premature? I mean, we just had this election. It's less than a month. And I think that our focus should be on reorganizing our party, restructuring our party, putting the party together, and making sure that the horse which Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is going to ride on into the election of 2028, which is the MPP horse, the MPP vehicle, the MPP machine, is fit for purpose and is being healed and cured and put together in a manner that it can go forward into this race with confidence, courage, and strength. So our focus and energies should be on rebuilding the party. In any event, I think it's a bit surprising for anybody to suggest that our ticket, the MPP ticket, should be completed way before the NDC even elects their presidential candidate. Because this is a game of chess. Politics is a game of chess, you know, and the running mate is supposed to complement the presidential candidate. So even whilst the NDC, when the NDC have not elected their presidential candidate, you then jump the gun and you go and select a vice presidential candidate. When the vice presidential candidate is supposed to complement the presidential candidate, you will be on the defensive and you will be exposed, because it would, depending on who the NDC selects as their presidential candidate, that also will be a major consideration in who becomes the vice presidential candidate of Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, because that person will be required to complement Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. So if you ask me respectfully, in all humility and modesty, I think that the question of running mate should not even come up now at all. I think we should focus on rebuilding the party. We should focus on supporting the candidate to go through and lead us through these very important reforms that we require in our party. And we should focus on supporting the candidate to put the party together and put strategies together to make the MPP winnable in 2028. The question of vice presidential can, I believe, will come further down the road, not now.
A resident parliamentary correspondent, Kweku Asante, did that interview and is joining me with some more. Kweku, you asked him about unity. He has some special ideas. What are those?
Well, Ken, we know that the rhetoric during the campaign was intense. In fact, there were a lot of language from across the divide, in particular, Dr. Bawumia at the receiving end of those attacks. And going into 2028, the MPP recognizes how crucial the question of unity will be. Samuel Abu-Jinapor says the MPP has always united. As far as he's concerned, certain things are already ongoing behind the scene to bring back all the factions to be prepared and ready for the battle in 2028.
Down to the best traditions of our party, those who did not win are required to support the winner. And so far, I see that all those who contested in this election have begun to demonstrate leadership and have begun to demonstrate loyalty to the party, and are taking steps which suggest that they are going to live by the true traditions of the MPP. As you know, in 1992, when Professor Adubuahi was elected, President Kufuor, Jan Selby, Peter Alajiti, and all those who contested him rallied behind Professor Adubuahi. Same happened in 1996 when Professor Adubuahi and the rest rallied behind President Kufuor. In 1998, President Akufo-Addo, then who lost to President Kufuor, rallied behind President J. Kufuor. And so that is the tradition of our party. That is what is required of those who don't win. And as I say, those who did not win, Mr. Kennedy Japan, Dr. Brian Achampong, Dr. Edichum, Kobna Japan, have all taken steps so far which are very encouraging. I think that they should be saluted and commended for the statesmanship they are demonstrating and their loyalty and love for the New Patriotic Party. That is what is to happen. That is what is expected of them, and that's what is expected of their supporters, and indeed the rank and file of our party. A lot of the responsibility also be on the candidate, the leader of our party. And I know that Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is a unifier, and he has the diplomatic skills and he has the wherewithal to be able to bring together the rank and file of our party, not just the leadership. That is one thing, but more importantly, is uniting the grassroots of our party at the base. That is what will give the MPP strength to be able to prosecute the election of 2028.
Kweku Asante with me. Kweku, another issue that has come up is the margin of victory between his 2023 and 2026 elections. What did Jinapor say about that?
We know that in 2023, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia won with a little over 60%, and now he's gotten 56%. The cause have been that it perhaps suggests that Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia does not have such a grip on the party, and that has meant a very weak control of the party. Samuel Abu-Jinapor says no. He says the dynamics are different, and he looks at the spread of the victory across regions, in particular Greater Accra, Ashanti region. It clearly tells him that the party base have coalesced around Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and will offer full support in 2028. A
margin of victory between Kennedy Japan and Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia in the last election is widened, and the gap between Dr. Bawumia and Mr. Brana Champong is huge. And also, if you look at the qualitative results, you will see that Dr. Bawumia had a much more widespread victory this time around than he did in 2023. Greater Accra, for example, he struggled a lot in 2023. In this particular election, he won very comfortably in Greater Accra. And as they say, all politics is in Greater Accra. That is good omen. That is encouraging. That is a good indication. It's a good signal that Dr. Bawumia's popularity and attractiveness is rising in Greater Accra. That, for me, is very refreshing. In Ashanti region, for example, he won 45 constituencies out of 47. He couldn't do that in 2023. In many places, in Savannah region, he increased his margin from 69% to 74%, won in all the 6 constituencies, all the 7 constituencies in Savannah region. And in each constituency, he almost had an upward adjustment. And so if you look at it in terms of the widespread of the victory, it means that there is much more broad acceptability of his candidature. But victory is victory. I mean, victory of one is victory. And the dictate of our constitution, the MPP constitution, requires him to be able to cross 50% plus 1. He has done that. And that means that he has full authority. He has a full mandate of the party. He's a leader of the party. And he is the man in charge of the New Patriotic Party now. And I believe that all the others will come on board and unite, and we all will be one big, formidable family to prosecute the crucial election of 2028. That's the point.
And that's how we wrap up the pulse today. The news team returns at 7 p.m. with Joy News Prime. But for more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com, and you can see our headline story this hour is only 20 of African SMEs engage in export trade. That is according to Vice President Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang. That's it for the pulse this hour. My name is Kenneth Jesse. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. See you tomorrow.